Hi, this is Meredith with the Cedar Rapids Public Library, and it is my distinct pleasure to have with us today Lata DeMello with Monsoon. Thank you so much for joining us. I was wondering if you could tell all the folks out there in library land just a little bit about Monsoon and what it is that you do with them.
Thank you, Meredith. Yes, Monsoon, full name Monsoon Asians and Pacific Islanders in Solidarity. It's an organization serving victims and survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, human trafficking in the Asian and Pacific Islander communities in Iowa. So altogether, gender-based violence, it kind of falls under that umbrella. We have been around since 2003, and we became a nonprofit in 2007. And between 2003 and 2007, it was a voluntary group. We have several programs now, so we've grown a lot since our volunteer days. So right now we have besides the direct services we provide, we have community outreach and education, which also falls under the direct services because it might involve providing services for a client, and it might involve doing outreach with an agency or an entity that provides services or that the client needs to be referred to. We work with victims through it's a community safe space. And it's called the healing space. So as we've named it, Banhao, which is the Lao word for our house. And that is a community space and for a space for support groups. We have otherwise the youth violence prevention program for middle and high schoolers. We have the campus advocacy program for university college students. We have a program which is still subsumed under Monsoon, but it is for the Arab community, which actually, when I say Arab, it's Middle Eastern, West Asian Arabs. And we work with, that's part of Asia, the Asians we serve. And we have a national organization called NAPISAVE, National Organization for API Ending Sexual Violence. We also, that national group serves also transnationally, so in the Philippines and Indonesia. Thank you.
That's a lot. That's so much. And something that I just want folks to know is that you've been with Monsoon from the start.
Yes.
I can't imagine how incredible it's been to see your organization grow and change and respond to the community. I mean, unfortunately, the response is because people are experiencing violence and discrimination, but to see how that community has grown and what a support network that is provided. One of the things that I think is really great about Monsoon and interesting too is it seems peer supported. So when you look at the staff page, a lot of folks there identify, where they are either from or how they identify. And it's all Asian and Pacific Islanders that are working together to bring the voices of this community up with them.
Yes. And absolutely. I think we've evolved from 2003, but even the initial core group was a mixed, diverse bunch. So when you say Asian, as I explained before, Arabs are part of Asia, West Asia. We cover East Asia, Southeast Asia, South Asia, and Central Asia, that is the former Soviet Republic. So it's a broad group of people, of diverse and dispersed people. We also work with the Asian diaspora. and then the Pacific Islanders and Hawaii. So there are people who come from even maybe ancestrally associate with one culture, have moved into another space and identify differently. And along with that is language and all their cultural needs. So we've tried to address it as we go along, because we don't cover every language and every ethnicity and every culture. But we see ourselves as Asian, but we also understand we're not a monolith. So we work with what we have, but we have volunteers, we have on-call advocates. We try to represent the communities we work with and serve. Yes.
Well, I think interestingly too, not just in terms of, a geographic kind of identity, but also working with the very young, with high school groups as well as campus, and then groups, and then adults. Like, that's a huge range of emotional needs and support that your organization serves too.
Yes. So young people, elderly, LGBTQ plus, also people who have disabilities and who have come with other cultural needs that are related to disabilities. Those are people we work with. And by the way, when I say gender-based violence, it does not mean just as victims over here in the United States, their second homeland or third homeland, because our direct services could mean anything from helping them get a protective order, to getting pro bono legal services, to working with law enforcement and the court system, to also getting housing, affordable housing, affordable permanent housing, or maybe even shelter, also other issues, jobs, medical care, etc. But these are also people who may not be victims of violence, gender-based violence in this country, will be carrying it on their bodies from either their home countries or what was their home country, maybe in refugee camps. And then they bring those traumas here, and those traumas either manifest while they're here, or they arise because of other trauma. Excuse me. So there are it's sort of a lot of multiple traumas. Then with all the intergenerational conflicts, you'll have even more while they are over here. So sometimes it's so much a compound complex trauma that we have to address it in different ways and in different spaces. It's not like, and I say this with absolute respect for mainstream organizations, where you come from, say, one culture of sorts and you can access services easily. But here there are multiple cultures besides the multiple traumas. So you have to be mindful of all these things while, it's navigating through all these minefields, so to speak. So it takes a long time with just one victim, with just one client providing those services.
So many factors, certainly. And I think it's so interesting to look at your organization as a whole. And it doesn't have to be like a cut and dry answer, but I feel like there's so many proactive things that you do to help combat violence and gender discrimination, and, having these like positive interactions and positive spaces to talk about like body positivity, and create a culture where, like people respect themselves and can advocate for themselves and know where these lines are that should not be crossed. But then there are these reactive services that you provide and help to, fix these very dynamic barriers that people have. Where in the organization's life did both of those things come into play, or has it always been kind of in balance like that?
No, I think we kind of, as I said, evolved, and we as we moved on, we discovered these things, and we continue to do that even today, because something new pops up and you're like, oh my, I did not think of this. and how are we going to address it together? And someone, our co-workers, community members will have the answers because they've already experienced that. So they might be able to provide that. So it's really important for us to keep that connection with community, and it's a good way to learn from them and to give back to them. So in that way, we have something called a community accountability project, which has actually been quite successful. It involves when a lot of the community members who come to us for services, victim services, will say, I want to go back to the person who has done me harm for various reasons. They care for the person. They might be beholden to the person because of their financial status, or there are children involved. So many reasons they do want to go back. I forgot to mention or emphasize that we are survivor centered, which means what survivors want. But we are also guides. It's not like, here, you have to do whatever you want to do. It is, here are options. What do you think would work for you? Then they go back and think about it and come back. And it takes a while for them to finalize on whatever option they prefer. But we walk them through everything. And it takes a while again for us to come up with all these options. So, but with the Community Accountability Project, because we hold communities accountable for the violence that we live under and in. We are responsible for our own violence, and we need to address it in a way that is beneficial for not just the victims, but also for harm doers, that there is harm doers, we don't see them as outsiders or so-called monsters. These are human beings. So, and we, unfortunately, we don't have the means yet to provide them services, and they do need that. And communities have also asked for that. Those society tends to push back, and that makes it worse. But the Community Accountability Project, to get back to that, actually does benefit when victims have come and said, I want to go back to my partner, or the person who I've accused of doing me harm and who has done me harm. And if both are willing to do that, what we do is there should be no criminal or any kind of civil cases that involve them, that those should be closed. So we have sessions where we invite them to our workspaces, but we've done it on Zoom also, where they bring their support network. So the victim might bring a mother or an aunt or an uncle, a pastor, a community leader, and the same for the harm doer. And what we do is that one of the things that when we set these rules in the beginning is only that there will be no finger pointing, especially not from a harm doer saying she or he or they made me do it. That will not be accepted. There are sort of some written rules, but they're more to kind of feel like you have done something that is tangible. And one of it is to acknowledge that, yes, I'm a harm doer. Yes, I do want to make this relationship work. And yes, you can hold me accountable, as will my support network, if I am, transgressing any of the agreements I make here. So in that sense, it's a discussion about what has worked. It's not mediation, and it's not restorative justice as such, because it involves community. It's not just harm doer and victim. It involves their community, because that community members, elders, leaders will have to say, yes, I will be responsible for this person to keep them safe, to keep them empowered, to encourage them to be empowered, and to continue, to sustain this relationship.
Ensure the accountability.
Yes. So
in the spirit of Read Woke, where we want to hear all of these voices brought to the forefront. Like, this is exactly, it's such it's a terrible situation that has to happen in order for this to, precipitate, but that all parties and a community all have this kind of collective voice of accountability is really a beautiful thing.
Thank you. Yes, it is. And by the way, this community accountability project came out of, so I should give props to where it came from. Creative Interventions was a kind of project started by Mimi Kim, a feminist in California, and Transformative Justice, which is part of our mission as well, as one that was started by this Gen 5 group. So in 5 years, young people who wanted in 5 years to end or targeting to end such kind of violence by holding communities accountable. So it's a simpler goal, but on the other hand, their focus was on all child sexual abuse that led to this sort of state where victims were continuously being harmed. So ending child sexual abuse was their goal also. But ours becomes, we borrowed from here and
It's
there.
transferable. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, how lovely. I mean, lovely. I mean, like,
I understand.
when a structure works, you can apply it to different situations.
Yes.
Oh, well, I was wondering if you would be willing to talk a little bit about, so you're a program coordinator in Iowa City. Is that exactly?
I am a director of programs, but it's all a fancy title. I'm an assistant director. I'm one of two assistant directors. So it's much easier to do that than to say I'm a director of programs in Eastern Iowa and Northeastern Iowa and Southern Iowa. But because my counterpart in Des Moines, based in Des Moines, she handles Central and Northwestern Iowa. So it's just for convenience. We serve all 99 counties. So
That's
we
remarkable.
are Iowa based and we travel. We are mobile advocates. Because of COVID, we've looked for other ways. Again, you have to be creative, but I've had to travel to places, Ottumwa, Cedar Rapids. I've also last year gone up to Sioux City, Storm Lake. You have to keep all the safety precautions in mind because of COVID. But otherwise, we're a lot more mobile than we have been in the last 12 months.
I think something that's really interesting is that you've talked a lot about some very concrete kind of things we do to help people, like in crisis or kind of in those proactive ways. But one of the interesting programs that's happening that you created is a performance that's coming up. And I think that if you don't mind talking about this kind of creative way that literally these voices are coming to life for the community, I think that's just another interesting way that your organization is working, and you personally as a creative human. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Thank you, Meredith. I actually see myself always as a better editor than a writer. So I see myself as a craftsman rather than an artist. But I love theater. I mean, that's for me a real deep interest and passion. I love going to theater. I have not been as great with acting, but I have done it in the past. But I love enjoying theater, and I've done it even now with everything going virtual because of COVID. So that's a great thing. So I decided part of our work has been community outreach that involves research as well of community participation. So participatory action research, for example, and we've been doing it from the beginning. I think one of the reasons we also do that is Mira Yusuf, the executive director, comes from an academic environment, but also before academia or within academia, she was also doing a lot of activist work. She's a big believer in community organizing, as am I. So labor rights, worker rights, all those things that, people, marginalized folks have to worry about or have to focus on is what we do. So we are a good combination when it comes to that. But my interest is in how to do theater to get theater as activism. I also have been a big supporter and an actor of forum theater. And I also was part of a theater workshop about 10 years ago, which I have kind of used that platform to create plays that might be very social justice and social activism connected. The most current one, Virginity Dialogues, came out of I have to say, my disappointment in vagina monologues over the years, and not just disappointment, my questioning it for what its focus was. And even though Eve Ensler has tried to work on that, it's very hard, as we discussed. If you come from privilege, how do you address and you see yourself through, you see your views are
Through the
from a
lens.
privileged lens. Yeah, it becomes very difficult to do that. Doesn't mean that people can't do it. It's very difficult. So I decided to, the latest one, Virginity Dialogues, came about because, not just because it was a play on vagina monologues, but we've been doing for the last year a lot of community listening sessions, and especially when we did it on sexual assault, I was talking to one of my co-workers who was concerned about how virginity was being viewed in her community and to what extents people would go to say they were virgins, and how important it was for women. And I say virgin, it's always assumed it's a woman. No one really demands that or makes those kind of requirements for males. And even when we talk about males, females, and now with gender identities being fluid, how do you then, what do you mean by virginity? So that's what I wrote, and it's still kind of a work in progress. So at some point, it will probably.
It's in rehearsal.
Yes.
But you have a scheduled date, though,
I
for a
do.
premiere.
Yes, and everybody has enthusiastically jumped into performing, and for, reading. When we did the reading, they've been doing really well. So I'm hoping to do more of these kind of plays of writing with the input of all my co-workers who are involved in these kind of, who would be involved, who now are involved in this project. But yes, so I hope people can attend. There will be a short introduction, then the play reading itself, and then we'll have a Q&A at the end of it.
Well, I think that's just a remarkable way to express your own artistic and creative abilities in a professional way as well. And I'm sure that it's really somehow cathartic for the performers and your coworkers to see it come to life.
Yes.
And the stories to be presented in such a way, and to have not only voices heard, but experiences normalized by coming to a stage, literally.
Yes.
As well as figuratively. Oh, that's lovely.
And it's, when we were doing the practice run, it's very interesting for those who had read it, who also looked at a couple of the lines in a way that, why can't we question this further? I don't want to give anything away because that will come on the day itself. But that the actors and some who were just standing in for others because they were not available wanted to know why not. And we had to have that conversation with my own co-workers about what it is about virginity and what it is, if this sort of situation would happen, how would they respond to it if it was with a client, with someone from the community? Would they demand answers, or would they allow people their own silence and privacy about how they view certain aspects of female bodies and female anatomies and female autonomy also?
What a multifaceted project that turned out to be. It's true. It's like a teaching tool. It's a sensitivity training tool. It's art. It's performance. I'm sure it's like team building for your staff.
Yes.
And
yes, it is.
That's remarkable.
Yes.
Just among the many things that you do.
Thank you, Meredith. We're trying to make it, we want Monsoon to be, and that's what our goal is, but also a vision that we see, a short-term vision and a long-term vision, is also to be able to organize in communities where they can do this sort of, do creative projects that might make it more meaningful and more transformative of their cultures and communities. I was part of this forum theater group, and it was international people from all over the world were participating. And I made friends with this woman from Egypt who I've been in touch with now, who also she works in a community center and she works with youths, and they do forum theater as a way to communicate or to make the children understand issues of oppression, of freedom, this is in Egypt. So how they do it creatively, and we want to collaborate with them. So yes, so it's not just, we want this kind of an artistic movement that is already going on, but we want to connect with them, though it and them who are participants in it.
Well, I can't thank you enough for your time today, sharing with us the work that Monsoon does all across Iowa and internationally, across borders, cultures, oceans, whatever, to connect people and really to bring individual voices to a place where everyone is heard. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you for having me, Meredith. I really appreciated it, and I'm grateful to you for giving me this chance. Thank you.
You're welcome. And for all of you out there in library land, stay tuned. I'll be showing you all the social media for Monsoon so you can stay in touch and stay connected. Their website where you can sign up for the newsletter and see all the different programs that they have to offer. And there will also be a slide so that you can find out more information about the Virginity Dialogues. From all of us here at the Cedar Rapids Public Library, thanks for watching.
The Virginity Dialogues will take place on Thursday, April 29th, 2021 at 1 o'clock in the afternoon Central Time. You can register at http://bit.ly/3EUCASJ or email lata@monsooniowa.org for more information. To find out more about Monsoon, to sign up for their newsletter, or to view all of their social media and productions, you can visit monsooniowa.org or go directly to their Facebook page to follow, their Twitter feed, their SoundCloud account for podcasts, or their YouTube channel for their media. Additionally, I would recommend the following books to understand better some of the issues that come along with gender in the Asian, Pacific Islander, American communities. The Best We Could Do is an illustrated memoir. Girls Burn Brighter, a novel. The Woman Warrior, a memoir. And Edinburgh is a fictionalized tale, but from a male perspective. We really appreciate you joining us for another edition of Read Woke. If you have any questions about the Read Woke Challenge or any other questions regarding the library, you can call us at 319-261-READ or visit us online at crlibrary.org.